Marcus Chen never thought purchasing his dream home would lead to a neighborhood war, but as he floated peacefully in his backyard pool that scorching July afternoon, he was about to discover just how territorial suburban America could be. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" The shrill voice pierced through the tranquil sounds of water lapping against the pool's edge. Marcus opened one eye, squinting against the bright sunlight. A woman with an aggressively highlighted blonde bob stood at his fence line, designer sunglasses perched on her head, arms crossed over her chest like she was personally offended by his existence. "I'm swimming," Marcus replied simply, trying to keep his tone friendly. "Can I help you with something?" He'd only moved into the Oak Ridge Estates community 3 weeks ago and had barely met any neighbors. The pool had been the selling point of the property, a beautiful in-ground oasis with a small waterfall feature that the previous owners had installed just 2 years prior. After weeks of unpacking and settling in, this was his first chance to actually enjoy it. "You can't be in that pool," the woman declared with the confidence of someone who believed her opinion was law. Marcus stood up in the chest-deep water cascading down his shoulders. "I'm sorry, but this is my house. This is my pool." "No, it isn't," she snapped. "That pool belongs to the Williamsons. The Williamsons sold this house to me last month," Marcus explained patiently. "I closed on May 15th. I have all the paperwork if you'd like to see it." The woman's face flushed an alarming shade of red. "That's impossible. The HOA wasn't notified of any sale. I'm Patricia Whitmore, the president of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, and I would know if the Williamsons had sold their house." Marcus sighed, realizing his peaceful afternoon was now officially ruined. "Well, Patricia, they did sell it. To me." Marcus Chan, new homeowner. "It's nice to meet you, though I wish it were under different circumstances." Patricia's eyes narrowed as she gave him a once-over that made Marcus immediately conscious of his heritage. His parents had immigrated from Taiwan before he was born, like he'd experienced that evaluating look enough times in his life to recognize it. "I don't believe you," she said flatly. "The Williamsons would have told me. They were friends of mine. Look, I have the keys to the house, the deed, and I'm literally swimming in my own backyard. I don't know what else to tell you." Patricia pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the Williamsons right now." "Go ahead," Marcus said, trying to maintain his composure. He climbed out of the pool and grabbed his towel, feeling increasingly uncomfortable being scrutinized while wearing only swim trunks. As he dried off, he could hear Patricia's agitated voice as she apparently reached someone on the phone. Her expression changed from smugness to confusion, then to something resembling outrage. "They sold it, without telling the HOA. Without telling me," she hissed into the phone. Marcus sat on one of his new patio chairs, waiting for the inevitable apology that would follow. Instead, Patricia ended her call, glared at him with undisguised hostility, and said, "There are rules in this community, mister. Whatever your name is. The pool regulations clearly state no swimming after 7 p.m., no glass containers, and no unsupervised children." "It's 2 p.m. I don't have any glass out here, and as you can see, I'm an adult," Marcus replied, gesturing to his very obviously child-free yard. Patricia's lips thinned to a tight line. "We'll see about this. The Williamsons never mentioned selling to someone like you." Before Marcus could respond to the thinly veiled comment, Patricia stalked away, phone still clutched in her hand. He watched her go, a sinking feeling in his stomach that told him this wasn't the end of the encounter, but merely the opening salvo in what was about to become a neighborhood nightmare. What he couldn't possibly have anticipated was just how far Patricia Whitmore was willing to go to make him feel unwelcome in what was supposed to be his sanctuary. The following morning, Marcus woke to the sound of someone knocking insistently at his front door. Groggily, he threw on a t-shirt and sweatpants, padding barefoot through his half-unpacked living room. Through the peephole, he saw Patricia Whitmore standing on his porch, a thick binder clutched to her chest like a shield. Behind her stood 2 other people, a tall, balding man with a permanent frown and a petite woman with carefully styled gray hair. Marcus took a deep breath before opening the door. "Good morning, Patricia." "Mr. Chen," she replied stiffly. "This is Roger Kessler, our HOA vice president, and Diane Fullerton, our secretary. We're here to discuss your residency situation." "At 7:30 in the morning, on a Saturday?" Marcus asked, glancing pointedly at his watch. Diane at least had the decency to look somewhat embarrassed. "We apologize for the early hour, but Patricia felt this was urgent. May we come in?" Roger asked, though his tone suggested it wasn't really a question. Marcus hesitated. Every instinct told him to shut the door in their faces, but he was new to the neighborhood and didn't want to start a war if he could avoid it. Reluctantly, he stepped aside. "I haven't had coffee yet," he said. "Would any of you like some?" "This isn't a social call." Patricia cut in before the others could respond. She marched into his living room, surveying the space with obvious disapproval. "I brought the full HOA covenant for you to review." She dropped the massive binder onto his coffee table with a heavy thud. "I have a digital copy that came with my closing documents," Marcus said. "I've already reviewed it." Patricia ignored him. Section 12, paragraph 4 clearly states that any alteration to exterior elements, including pools, must be approved by the architectural committee. Marcus frowned. "I haven't made any alterations. The pool was here when I bought the house." "But the Williamsons' approval was for their usage," Patricia explained as if speaking to a child. "New ownership requires new approval." Roger nodded solemnly. "It's a technicality, but it's in the bylaws." Marcus felt a headache beginning to form behind his eyes. "So you're telling me I need approval to use a pool that was already approved and already exists on property that I legally own?" "Exactly," Patricia said with a satisfied smile. "And until that approval is granted, the pool is officially off limits." "That's ridiculous," Marcus said, his patience waning. "Look, I understand there are rules, but this seems unnecessarily bureaucratic." Diane stepped forward, her tone conciliatory. "The approval shouldn't take long. Just fill out these forms." She pulled several documents from the binder. "We'll need your background information, employment history, references, and a $350 processing fee." $350? To use my own pool? Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Plus, you'll need to attend the next HOA meeting to present your case," Roger added. "That's in 3 weeks." 3 weeks? It's the middle of summer. Patricia's smile grew even more satisfied. "Rules are rules, Mr. Chen. We can't make exceptions, even for new residents." The way she said new residents made it abundantly clear what she really meant. Marcus felt his stomach tighten with a familiar anger he'd experienced too many times before. "I think you should leave now," he said quietly. "I'll review these documents and get back to you." "We expect your application by Monday," Patricia declared as she headed for the door. "And remember, no pool usage until approval is granted." After they left, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, flipping through the binder with growing disbelief. The rules were absurdly specific and controlling. Everything from what colors were acceptable for front doors to how long holiday decorations could remain displayed. But nowhere could he find the specific provision Patricia had cited about pool approval transferring with ownership. His phone rang, interrupting his research. It was his sister, May. "Hey, how's the dream house?" she asked cheerfully. "Turning into a nightmare," Marcus replied, then explained the situation. "That's straight-up discrimination," May said angrily. "You should call a lawyer." "I don't want to escalate things if I don't have to," Marcus sighed. "I'm hoping I can resolve this reasonably." After hanging up, Marcus decided some yard work might help clear his head. He was trimming hedges near his property line when he noticed an older gentleman watching him from the adjacent yard. "Looks like you've met the neighborhood nightmare," the man called out conversationally. Marcus approached the fence. "Patricia?" "Yeah, you could say that." "James Gordon," the man introduced himself, extending a hand over the fence. "I've lived next to this house for 15 years. Watched 3 different owners come and go, all running from Hurricane Patricia." "That bad, huh?" Marcus asked, shaking James' hand. "Worse," James confirmed, "but she's never pulled this pool approval nonsense before. Not with the Williamsons, not with the Andersons before them." Marcus felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. "So this isn't standard procedure?" "Son, there's nothing standard about it," James said, his expression serious. "The Murphys across the street installed an entirely new pool last summer. Paperwork took 3 days, fee was $50. "I see," Marcus said quietly. "Just so you know," James continued, lowering his voice, "not everyone in Oak Ridge is like Patricia. Some of us are actually decent human beings." As Marcus thanked James and returned to his yard work, he made a decision. He wouldn't be filing any ridiculous application. Tomorrow was forecast to be the hottest day of the year so far, and he planned to spend it exactly where he belonged, in his own backyard pool. Let Patricia do her worst. He had no idea just how literally she would take that challenge. Sunday arrived with a merciless heat wave that sent temperatures soaring past 95 degrees by mid-morning. Marcus had spent the previous evening researching HOA laws and had confirmed what he suspected. Patricia's pool approval requirement was completely fabricated. He found the original pool permit in his closing documents and verified with the county that the structure was fully approved, properly inspected, and legally his to use. Armed with this knowledge and a newfound determination, Marcus prepared for a day of defiant relaxation. He set up a small table beside the pool with a pitcher of lemonade, a waterproof speaker playing soft jazz, and the folder of documentation proving his right to use his own pool, just in case. At precisely 11 a.m., Marcus slipped into the cool, refreshing water and let out a contented sigh. The heat made the pool feel like heaven, and for a few blissful minutes he almost forgot about Patricia and her crusade against him. The peace lasted exactly 17 minutes. "Mr. Chen," Patricia's voice rang out from the other side of his fence. "Mr. Chen, you are in direct violation of HOA regulations." Marcus continued floating calmly, eyes closed against the bright sun. "Good morning, Patricia. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Patricia's face appeared above the fence line. She was standing on something to peer over the 6-foot privacy barrier. "I specifically informed you that pool usage is prohibited until your application is approved." "Actually," Marcus replied, swimming to the edge of the pool closest to her, "I reviewed the HOA covenant thoroughly last night. There's no such provision. The pool was approved for this property in 2019, and that approval transfers with ownership. I have the documentation right there if you'd like to see it." Patricia's face flushed crimson. "That's not the point. The architectural committee must." "The architectural committee approves structural changes." Marcus interrupted calmly. "I haven't changed anything. The county inspector signed off on this pool 3 years ago. It's grandfathered in." "You're twisting the rules," Patricia hissed, her knuckles white as she gripped the top of the fence. "No, I'm following them exactly as written," Marcus replied, "which is why I've decided not to submit your application or pay your invented fee." Patricia disappeared from view momentarily and reappeared. "This is your final warning, Mr. Chen. Exit the pool immediately or face consequences." "Patricia," Marcus said, his voice firm but even, "I understand you're the HOA president and I respect the role, but this is harassment. I'm using my property legally and I have every right to do so. I'd appreciate it if you please respect my privacy now." With that, Marcus turned away and swam toward the other end of the pool. Behind him, he heard what sounded like a muffled scream of frustration, followed by the clatter of something being knocked over. About 20 minutes later, Marcus noticed movement at the fence again. This time, it was his cell phone being held up, clearly taking pictures or video of him swimming. He sighed and climbed out of the pool, wrapping his towel around his waist as he approached. "Patricia, are you filming me without my consent?" he called out. The phone quickly disappeared, but not before Marcus caught a glimpse of Patricia's distinctive purple phone case. Moments later, he heard the click of a camera shutter from another angle, from the side of his property that bordered a different neighbor. His relaxing Sunday was turning into surveillance central. Marcus retreated inside to grab a light lunch, wondering if he needed to invest in higher fences or privacy screens. When he returned to his patio 15 minutes later, he discovered a manila envelope had been pushed under his back gate. Inside was a printout of what appeared to be a neighborhood email chain with the subject line, "Urgent Pool Safety Come and See Yarn." His stomach dropped as he read Patricia's message to the entire Oak Ridge community. "Dear neighbors, it has come to the HOA board's attention that an unauthorized individual has been using the pool at 347 Magnolia Lane, formerly the Williamson residence. This person has refused to comply with safety regulations and background checks required for pool ownership. As we know, unsupervised or improperly maintained pools can be dangerous, especially for children who might be tempted to enter the property. The board is taking immediate action to address this safety concern. In the meantime, please keep your children away from this address and report any suspicious activity to myself or Roger Kessler. In community safety, Patricia Whitmore, HOA president." Marcus stood frozen, the paper trembling in his hands. She was practically labeling him a threat to children. The thinly veiled racial undertones of unauthorized individual and suspicious activity weren't lost on him either. As he tried to process this new level of hostility, his doorbell rang. Heart pounding, Marcus went to answer it, half expecting to find an angry mob of concerned parents on his doorstep. Instead, he found James, his neighbor, looking apologetic. "Thought you should see this before things get out of hand," James said, handing over a printed flyer. The paper featured a grainy, zoomed-in photo of Marcus swimming in his pool with bold red text screaming "Safety Alert" across the top. Below the photo was text suggesting that an unapproved resident was creating hazardous conditions in the neighborhood. "She's putting these in mailboxes," James explained, which, by the way, is a federal offense. Marcus stared at the flyer, a cold anger replacing his initial shock. "This is defamation. She's trying to make me look dangerous. Patricia's done some low things in her time as HOA president," James said grimly, "but this is a new level, even for her." "What does she think is going to happen?" Marcus asked. "That I'll just pack up and move." James shrugged. "Probably. It's worked before." As they spoke, a car slowed down in front of Marcus's house. The driver, a woman he'd never seen before, stared openly at his home before speeding away. "It's starting," James murmured. "Listen, I've got your back. Several of us do. Patricia doesn't speak for everyone." After James left, Marcus sat on his front steps, the flyer still in his hand, torn between rage and disbelief. He had 3 options: back down and submit to Patricia's demands, fight back and escalate the situation, or try to find some middle ground. The decision was made for him when his phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the HOA board, an official violation notice with a $100 daily fine for unauthorized pool usage and a threat of a lion against his property if left unpaid. By Wednesday, Marcus' inbox was flooded with messages from concerned neighbors, some expressing support, others demanding explanations for Patricia's allegations. He'd spent Monday documenting every instance of harassment and consulting with a lawyer friend who specialized in housing discrimination. Tuesday had brought a certified letter threatening additional fines and possible legal action from the HOA board. "This is getting out of hand," Meg said when she called to check on him. "You need to file a restraining order against this woman." "I'm handling it," Marcus assured his sister, though he wasn't entirely sure how. What he didn't tell Maya was that he'd installed security cameras around his property the previous day, capturing Patricia's increasingly bizarre behavior, photographing his house from the sidewalk, instructing children to avoid walking past his property, and at one point appearing to measure the height of his fence with a tape measure. Today was his day off from the architectural firm where he worked, and Marcus had planned to catch up on some design projects. Instead, he found himself responding to another round of hostile emails. At noon, desperate for a break, he changed into his swim trunks and headed for the backyard. The moment he stepped onto his patio, he noticed something different, a faint chemical smell hanging in the air. Frowning, Marcus approached his pool and found the water cloudy with an unusual tint. "What the hell?" he muttered, kneeling to dip his fingers in the water. It felt oily and wrong. A quick test of the pool chemistry confirmed his suspicions. Someone had dumped something into his pool overnight. The pH levels were dangerously high, and there was an odd residue forming around the edges. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate sabotage. As Marcus stared at the contaminated water, movement caught his eye. A small drone was hovering over his backyard, its camera clearly pointed at him. That was the final straw. Marcus marched into his house, grabbed his phone, and pulled up the footage from his security cameras. Sure enough, at 3:17 a.m., the night vision camera had captured a figure in a hooded sweatshirt approaching his pool with what appeared to be a large container. The person had poured something into the water before quickly retreating. Though the video obscured most identifying features, the figure's distinctive gait and the flash from a purple phone case when they checked their pocket was all the confirmation Marcus needed. Armed with the footage, Marcus walked purposefully out his front door and down the street to Patricia's house, a large colonial with aggressive landscaping and a proud HOA family sign planted prominently in the front yard. He rang the doorbell 3 times before Patricia finally answered, her expression souring instantly at the sight of him. "Mr. Chen, this is highly inappropriate. If you have concerns, you need to submit them in writing to the board end." "You dumped chemicals in my pool," Marcus interrupted, his voice level despite his anger. "I have you on camera, Patricia." Her face flickered momentarily with surprise before settling back into righteous indignation. "That's a ridiculous accusation. I would never trespass on anyone's property." "The police won't think it's ridiculous," Marcus replied. "Nor will they think the harassment, defamation, and what appears to be a hate crime is ridiculous either." Patricia's husband appeared behind her, looking concerned. "What's going on, Patty?" "Nothing, Richard," she snapped. "Mr. Chen was just leaving." "Actually," Marcus continued, "I'm giving you one chance to make this right. Remove the violation notices, retract your emails to the neighborhood, and stop the harassment. Or I file charges this afternoon." Patricia's face contorted with rage. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating facts," Marcus replied calmly. "You've crossed several legal lines, and I have documentation of all of it." "You have no proof of anything," Patricia hissed. "And no one in this community will take your word over mine. I've been here for 15 years. You're just some outsider who doesn't belong." Richard looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Patricia, maybe we should." "Stay out of this," she snapped at her husband before turning back to Marcus. "You want to play hardball? Fine. By this time next week, the board will vote to place a lion on your property. Let's see how you like dealing with that while trying to pay your mortgage." "The board needs a majority vote for that," Marcus pointed out, "and I'm building quite a collection of supporters who recognize your actions for what they are." As if on cue, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from James. "Meeting with concerned neighbors tonight at my place. Already have 12 people coming." Marcus held up his phone so Patricia could see the message. "Looks like your reign might be coming to an end." Patricia's face paled slightly before flushing an alarming shade of red. "Get off my property before I call the police." "That's fine," Marcus said, taking a step back. "I'll be calling them too about the criminal trespassing and vandalism." As he walked away, he heard Patricia slam her door so hard that her precious Home of the Year 2023 plaque fell from its hook, clattering to the ground. Back at his house, Marcus spent 2 hours draining and cleaning his pool, a process that would take days to fully complete. The contamination appeared to be some mixture of cleaning chemicals and possibly motor oil. enough to make the pool unusable without causing permanent damage to the filtration system. Amateur sabotage, but effective. As he worked, several neighbors slowed their cars to watch. A few even stopped to talk. "Is it true that you threatened Patricia?" asked an older woman who introduced herself as Elaine from 4 doors down. "No," Marcus explained patiently. "I told her I have evidence she vandalized my property and that I would file a police report if the harassment didn't stop." Elaine nodded thoughtfully. "You know, she'd done similar things before. When Gonzalez's family moved in on Oak Street, she suddenly discovered violations with their landscaping that never existed for the previous owners." "That doesn't surprise me," Marcus said. By evening, word had spread through the neighborhood about the confrontation. Marcus received an email from Roger Kessler, the HOA vice president, requesting a private meeting to discuss recent misunderstandings. It seemed at least some of the board was getting nervous about Patricia's vendetta. As Marcus showered to get ready for the meeting at James' house, his doorbell rang repeatedly, with increasing urgency. Still dripping wet, he threw on clothes and hurried to answer it, half expecting to find Patricia on another rampage. Instead, he found his elderly neighbor from across the street, Mrs. Harmon, looking distressed. "You need to come quick," she said, her voice shaking. "Patricia is at your pool again and she's got the police with her." Marcus rushed out into his backyard where the surreal scene unfolded before him. Patricia Whitmore standing beside his still cloudy pool, gesturing dramatically to 2 uniformed officers, one of whom was taking notes. "There he is." Patricia pointed at Marcus. "That's the man who's been threatening me and destroying neighborhood property." The officers turned, their expressions unreadable as Marcus approached his own backyard from the side gate. "Officers," he said as calmly as possible, "I'm Marcus Chen. This is my house and my pool. May I ask what's going on?" "Sir," the older officer began, "we've received a complaint about threatening behavior and environmental hazards on this property. Can you explain why your pool appears to be contaminated with an unknown substance?" Before Marcus could answer, Patricia stepped forward, her voice trembling with what he now recognized as practiced theatrics. "He's been hostile since he moved in," she declared. "The entire neighborhood is afraid of what he might do next." As Marcus looked from the officers to Patricia's smugly victorious expression, he realized with crystal clarity that this woman had just crossed a line from which there would be no return.